Good afternoon.
Hello.
Welcome to the April 4th meeting of the Cape Cod Regional Government Assembly of Delegates. I hereby call this meeting to order, and we will begin with a moment of silence to honor our troops who have died in service to our country and all those serving our country in the armed forces. Thank you, and now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Richard Anderson.
Here.
Cheryl Andrews.
Here.
Ronald Bergstrom.
Here.
Leo Kukunis. Christopher Kanega. James Killian.
Here.
Marcia King.
Here.
Thomas Lynch.
Here.
Teresa Martin.
Here.
Deborah McCutcheon.
Here.
Spiro Mitrakostas.
Here.
John Oman.
Here.
Paul Pilcher.
Here.
Anthony Scalise. Julia Taylor.
Here.
Mr. Speaker, we have a quorum present with 92.72% of the delegates present and 7.28% absent.
Thank you, and now I need a motion to approve the calendar of business.
Motion to approve. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additions or subtractions or changes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You should have received a copy of the Journal of March 21st, 2012, our last meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Move approval of the Journal of March 21st.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we come to communications from the Board of Regional Commissioners. We got a couple of them here.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Up first, I have for you, I want to present you with an ordinance, a proposed ordinance, a request to transfer funds. This is a request from Human Services as a result of their Mass in Motion grant. They want to take certain funds from their salary line and move it to their professional services line because it will be more helpful to them in executing the provisions of the grant. I don't really have a report today. We've been spending the last two meetings, last week and this week, talking about the recommendations from the Special Commission. We've been discussing them. Last week, we took up most of the recommendations, with the exception of governance and the Assembly of Delegates. Today, we took up a discussion on the county commissioners, the recommendation to increase the commissioners, and we just barely got into a discussion on the Assembly of Delegates. So there's no resolution, no votes. We're just still continuing the discussion and really talking about how we, what process we might use to develop a plan in which to implement some of these. So that's really all I have today.
I just have a question sort of relative to the discussions that you've been having. It came to my attention, and I watched the video of your meeting of September 14th. I think that was not too long ago.
Yeah, 7 months.
No, I'm sorry. It was your meeting of March. I wrote the wrong date. I wrote the wrong date down. It was your March meeting, and you know, there's a lot of concern about this wastewater problem, this wastewater entity or authority. I don't know, you just look at my inbox on my email and I'm inundated with information about it. And it seems to me that one of the things that the county needs to do is to be utterly transparent about discussions about this. Well, on your agenda, there was no indication that there would be a discussion with Mr. Niedzwiecki, and I'm forgetting his name,
Andrew Gottlieb.
Andrew Gottlieb, about the wastewater issue. And there was, in fact, a 20-minute, 18-minute discussion. I'm wondering, I think that was a substantial open meeting law violation. I'm wondering, you know, what you intend to do to address that. Are you aware of the fact that that was a discussion that was not on your agenda? It was a back and forth between the commissioners and the two gentlemen who were reporting. It is the kind of thing that has to be on your agenda before you can talk about it. I'm wondering what you intend to do to address.
Well, I would actually have to actually look at the agenda for that day, but we did have a specific agenda item to meet with them to discuss wastewater, because that was, I believe, the meeting, one of the meetings we met with them, where we directed them to develop the regional plan for wastewater over the course of this year and come back to us at the end of December and report to us periodically on a quarterly basis. That was an agenda item.
Okay.
But I don't know specifically the meeting to which you refer.
I'm going to have to, I will follow up on this with you with
Sure.
a copy of the agenda. and
Absolutely,
the
yes.
reference. So-
Please do that.
Okay, thank you.
Don't say anything. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions for the, yes, John and then Leo?
Oh, thank you. I was not able to attend your meeting today, but I must say that going online and trying to listen to it on a simulcast, it was just terrible. It cut out. The voice control was just up and down, and eventually, I think maybe it was due to circumstances beyond your control. I think it was filmed from the very back of the room, which I'd never seen happen before. And I was just wondering if there's any way that you could have someone look at it and make it a little more easily accessible online. It was, and there were a variety of comments asking the same question, saying what happened to the sound, what happened to the picture, what happened. It was just very difficult, and I really wanted to hear what you had to say regarding county governance today.
sure.
And I was not able to attend, and thus I'll be awaiting the final version online.
Well, I think we will have a discussion with the provider of those services and see if perhaps there's something we can do to improve it.
Leo?
In your statements in regards to the meeting, especially today, then you talked about the special committee's recommendations, specifically to the, not today, but I guess it was today you had a meeting right this morning, in regards to the reconstruction, I'll use the term, of county governance, the getting rid of the assembly, or merging the assembly and the commissioners together. Is it your inclination as the commissioners, presently commissioners, to go with that recommendation and just research the best possible way of doing it? Or are you guys still looking at other alternatives? Or are you looking at maybe doing nothing to the structure of government? Or have you, as a party, as the commissioners, accepted that recommendation, and basically what you're doing now is looking forward to move forward to see the best way to implement it?
Well, I would say that the discussions we've had in the last couple of weeks have been very general. We've been looking at what is good about the current structure of government, and what really works, or what works very well, and what needs to be improved. And then we look at the recommendations in the same sense. What's good about these recommendations? What will they do for county government? In terms of how to implement them, I think we did speak a little bit to this, about this at the end, even with Mark Zielinski, that we need to have a planning session, and I would say like a half a day or a couple of half days, and we need to take a look at these recommendations and really dissect them and look at the different models, if you will, as to how we can achieve the implementation of these, if this is what not only we think is a good way to go, but the community thinks is a good way to go, because it's going to take a lot of public forums, I think, with the community. They need to, we have to come up with some sort of a plan that we can then take out to the community and say, give us your reactions to this. What do you think, what do you think is good? What do you think needs to be changed? The whole idea is that we have to think about the future of county government. I mean, we're now living in the present. The present has been the same for a long time. What are the challenges that we face in the future? One of them is the incredible improvement in the area of the internet and computer applications. It's amazing what governments are going to be able to do with the way data can be accumulated, how it can be managed, and how it can be utilized. And we have to think about that because there's huge cost efficiencies that will be available to us through the computer applications. So that's one thing. So we have to look at think about what the county is going to look like in 20 years. Where do we need to be in 10 years, in 20 years, and how can we best get there? I was telling the group today, I heard a program on big data. I don't know if you heard that. It was on NPR the other day. It's absolutely amazing, the amount of data that our intelligence communities have created or put together over the last 20 years. Huge amounts of data about things you can't imagine. And they're going to start releasing this and making it available to the public. So we need to think about all of this in relation to how we operate this county government here. So we talked a bit about how we're going to get to this, and I think we're going to have to set aside, as I said before, some half days here and there to work through all of these different recommendations, come up with something that we think is ready to take to the community, to all of the community, and get their input, because nothing will go anywhere unless the community supports it and the delegation supports it. Because if you don't have support in those two sections, then nothing will happen. So that's kind of where we are. We're nowhere near saying we like this, we don't like that, we're going to move forward, we're going to do this. It's going to take time.
Pat, can I just ask you a couple of questions? From my seat here as speaker, I'm more concerned, there's been a lot of comment, Deborah talked about her inbox filling up, same thing with mine, wastewater and county governance, and, there's been some, I would say enthusiasms, but there's been some discussion among the members of the Assembly that they would like to comment on this, maybe we'll have a general discussion, and I have sort of discouraged that because the Special Commission has reported to you, and I've sort of said, it's up to you to make recommendations, and then the Assembly will look at it. So I'm curious as to what the time frame is. I mean, we're not expecting, if you're telling, first of all, I'm encouraged for you to say that you're going to come up with specific recommendations and then go out to the public, rather than doing it the other way,
right.
Okay? I agree, but what kind of time frame are we talking about? Is there immediacy to this? I mean, we're not going to go, you said last meeting, we're not going to target this next November election for any of this. If we're not going to do that, then I have time. Once the budget process is over, we can go and in a parallel process, we can do that. So what kind of immediacy are we talking about?
Well, we talked today about setting up a half-day session to do some planning, and we need to have someone work with us to do this. So I would say sometime within the next 3 weeks, we will have a half-day session on this, and we will let you know what that is. Getting back to the wastewater, every single time we say we are not in the business of creating a wastewater authority, a taxable authority. That has never, those words were used by, you heard him, Rob O'Leary. He was here last week, and he said, I said those words because, quote, I wanted to put a stake in the ground to get people's attention. This has been going on for 10 years. No one's doing anything about it. So now what's happened is that people think that we are in the business of creating an authority, and we are not. We have asked Paul and Andy Gottlieb to come up with a regional plan, not an authority. If the plan needs some legislative action on it, then put that in the plan, whatever that legislative action may be. It may be only for other types of funding purposes. We don't know. But we are not our goal is not to create a wastewater authority. We say it day in, day out. Paul Nitzwicki was quoted in the Cape Cod Times today as saying, we are not looking to create a wastewater authority. I don't know how many more times we can say it. We've said it in every session we have had. We said it today, we said it last week. We continually say, we are not in the business of creating a wastewater authority. We're creating a regional plan.
All right, and you said, and I assume this is still your policy, is that Paul Nitzwicki and Andrew Gottlieb are going to report to you by next December,
No, quarterly.
quarterly, on their
May,
progress?
yes, quarterly between now and December. We said May, August, October, and December.
Okay.
I just know that this morning, Andy Gottlieb and Linnell Grunman and Larry Ballantyne were together. I couldn't make that meeting because I was heading to the commissioners' meeting, God bless you. But they were working on the public process plan. So I will be able to report on that, and that will be coming out. That will be available to people. There will be scheduled meetings. There will be Saturday meetings. I know that Paul Nitzwicki is going to be involved with some of those. There's as things developed, people will be kept up to date on a regular basis so that they'll know where we're going. But really, this is to create a slate of options that will fix the problem at the lowest cost. So that's all we're working towards. And if whatever shape it comes out to in the end, everybody will be aware that that's the shape it's taking, and we'll be able to weigh in on that.
All right, Cheryl?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a follow-up to the comments from Ms. Flynn about you're not interested in creating an authority. On my way here, I was listening to the radio, and it was a taped a conversation or some kind of dialogue from Senator Dan Wolf, and he was talking exactly about wastewater and regional issues, and he specifically said that the appeal to him was that by combining the 15 towns, he could go to Washington and get us more money, or perhaps go to I don't know where else to get us more money. And I heard him say that, and I thought, oh, authority, because how else would you do that? So my question to you is it your understanding that somehow the Cape would be better positioned for either federal or state financing without an authority? In other words, just with a plan?
I would like to.
Yeah, well, when you said would the Cape be better off with the Cape, the idea is if we work regionally, we are in a better position to obtain funding. Working regionally does not mean creating an authority and does not mean putting all the 15 towns together. It could be a regional plan. It could be Barnstable, Sitman, Mashpee, and Yarmouth working on a regional plan for either their embayments or their estuaries or whatever. That's called a sub-regional plan, but it's still a regional plan. It isn't all, it could never happen that all the 15 towns have totally different needs, and I don't see how that would work.
Do you think that Provincetown has a better chance of garnering funds by itself than it would if it partnered with 4 other towns on a concept?
I'm not an expert in garnering funds. Clearly, I don't know if any of us are, because we've heard this message for many, many years about how if we work together, we can get money from somewhere.
Okay.
And I spent a couple of years on your Water Protection Collaborative looking for that. Now, I drove down, I'm just telling you what I heard on the radio from our state senator, and when I heard him say it, I thought what I was hearing was that he was in favor of a wastewater authority. He didn't say that. And so I'm just trying to understand what the thinking is.
Well, I was there at that meeting, and that was the press conference yesterday, and he spoke at that, and he said that to work regionally together is more beneficial to him. He said the buzzword today in government is collaboration and cooperation, because you have a bigger gain for the less money. So the evidence of that already is $40 million. In the last 3 years I've been sitting in this seat, we got $40 million because of a regional buy-in from every single town on the Open Cape. So there was funding that came here that could have gone to Berkshire's and to Boston. A 15-town or 14-town e-permitting grant sponsored by the county, just garnered the largest grant out of a $4 million grant that was given. $4 million was put aside for community partnership grants. That 15-town collaboration garnered us a larger grant than the city of Boston. The Human Service Department, in working with various towns, and some of them are the Outer Cape towns, Provincetown included, with the Cooperative Extension and the Health Department, is able to bring in $60,000 a year for the next 5 years, which is $300,000 for Mass in Motion, which will benefit the schools, smarter routes to schools, nutrition, and our bicycle trails. So that's just to name a couple of, things that have happened. That's not to name all of the grants that have come in because of collaborative efforts. So I do think that we would be able to have a stronger voice in the federal government and in the state government if we speak with one voice than if we just spoke from the town of Wellfleet or the town of Provincetown.
Just a word of caution is that before I recognize Leo, is we should kind of couch our conversation on actions that the commissioners have taken or words that they have spoken or things that they have done rather than get into a general conversation of wastewater, not because I don't want to, but because it's not on the agenda. So ask them what they've done or said, but you can't argue with them, except for Leo. Leo, I'm sure can argue.
I just want to apologize to my colleagues. I'm having a very confusing day, and I thought that when we started this meeting, I would probably get a little bit better, but I'm getting more and more confused. So I'm just going to go back to my original question. Has the commissioners taking a stand on specifically changing the county, structure of county government as it so exists right now? Have you taken a vote to support the recommendations suggested of changing the county government? Yes or no?
No.
Are you going to take a vote on changing the county government, either following the recommendations or a variation of the recommendations of the special committee relatively soon?
No. Not relatively soon. It requires a lot of planning. As I just mentioned that
I didn't ask you if we're going to implement it. My question was, because
take a
it would
vote.
be my indication that the county commissioners would say, we want to change the county government, and now we're going to look at this basic structure and put it out for general discussion and input, and again, maybe incorporate the assembly in helping you implement that. But until I know whether we are headed down that road or not, I don't know how to answer people on whether we are planning on changing government or not.
Let me say we are giving very serious consideration to changing government
Okay,
and involving the assembly in those discussions.
okay. If there are no other questions for the commissioners, thank you very much. And now we will have the Executive Director, Paul Niswicki, and we promise we're not going to ask him any wastewater questions. Okay?
It's so much frustrating. You want
I just wanted to invite you to League of Women vote. Wasn't this on the agenda before him?
What's that? He's on the agenda before public comment, but you can comment if you want.
Oh, all right, if you don't mind, it's just short.
Yeah.
I just wanted to invite you all to our April 28th forum on climate change and the future of Cape Cod. We will be having that at the Harwich Community Center on the 28th, as usual, at coffee at 9:30 and 10 to 12. And we hope that as many of you as can would be interested in joining us. We have Eric Davidson, Director of the Woods Hole Research Center, Avoiding Dangerous Climate Change, Megan Terrell and Lauren McKean from the National Seashore, and Paul Neswicki, Executive Director here, planning for a sustainable Cape Cod. And I think these are issues we will all be facing sooner rather than later, and maybe have already.
All right, but for the audience at home, you have to tell us who you are, so it's on the recording.
I'm sorry?
Oh, you did? Did you say who you are on the recording?
No.
You have to tell the mic who you are,
Oh, I'm sorry.
or you can tell this mic, it doesn't matter.
I was in a hurry. I'm Sherry Rappaport from the League of Women Voters.
Thank you. And by the way, I belatedly should mention that we're being recorded by other sources other than our regular sources. Paul, you're up.
Paul Niedzwicki, Executive Director of the Cape Cod Commission, and we're here to talk economic development today. So Leslie's going to attempt to set this up. Yeah, I'll hand these out. She has more 18th century sensibilities, so they probably work better this way.
Okay, my apologies. My name is Leslie Richardson, and I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer, not IT Officer, for the Cape Cod Commission. And we're here today to talk to you a little bit about the SEDS primarily, which is our Economic Development Handbook for the Commission and the county. So our general purpose is to keep the Cape keep a special place special, which is the tagline for the Cape Cod Commission. So we focus on economic development as distinguished between economic development and business development. So economic development focuses on infrastructure and clarity and fairness and regulation and industry cluster development, as well as education and workforce development. Business development, on the other hand, is practiced by organizations like the Community Development Partnership and the Chambers of Commerce, where they work directly with businesses to help them prosper. So we work on the frame, they work with the businesses to make the whole system prosper. So the SEDS itself is based on the Regional Policy Plan. The Regional Policy Plan has 4 goals for economic development. The first is to have low-impact compatible development, which is linked to our land use vision map, trying to locate development where development is best served by infrastructure. The second is to have a balanced economy. The third is regional income growth. That's the size of the pie. We want to attract income into the region and have it equally distributed across the region. And then finally, infrastructure capacity. We do the SEDS as a plan, and it's also a process. The plan is what we deliver to the federal government, the Economic Development Administration, for their certification. But the process is really what makes the plan worth anything. And we went through a very comprehensive planning process to come up with our 5-year plan. We had 5 work groups with over 100 participants through the process. We did some focus groups as well on the priority projects that were selected. What you have in front of you right now is a list of the priority projects that came out of that process. And it's color-coded. The green is what is underway or completed. Orange is what is in process. And if it's gray, that means that there's really been no action in relation to that particular project. So we do the SEDS both to build consensus and partnerships locally, but we also want to attract some funding from the federal government, if at all possible, for those priority projects. The SEDS is a Cape Cod Commission and EDC partnership process. The EDC acts as the strategy committee for the SEDS, and then the plan is adopted by the Cape Cod Commission. And it involves all sorts of regional stakeholders in the process of development. So we are implementing the SEDS right now. It's a 5-year plan, and we're in year 3. There are 3 elements that we're implementing. The first is research and data dissemination. The second is regional priority projects, the list you have in front of you. And the third is ongoing economic development planning, or what we call RESET, which is really targeted technical assistance to towns in economic development to help them get over any obstacles in their way. Who is implementing it? It's a Cape Cod Commission and EDC partnership process. And then we have teams of organizations on each regional priority project. And it's being accomplished through Cape Cod Commission support, as well as EDC support and EDA funding, and then the partnerships that we've developed over the process. So we have received a $60,000 grant from the EDA, and we've received a $150,000 grant from the EDC. Those are on an annual basis. The research and dissemination process is centered around our website, Stats Cape Cod, which we've developed with huge support from an outside entity in Indiana that has created a lot of databases of economic data that we then are able to disseminate through our website. So that's been probably about $100,000 in-kind services that we've received from the Indiana Business Research Center. We've also received $45,000 from the EDC to do a business survey, which is currently being reissued by the local chambers of commerce right now. So we'll be getting even more data on that to disseminate. Some of the interesting findings about that were that they found that energy costs and real estate costs, not surprisingly, were some of the major impediments to development on Cape Cod, and they found zoning and regulation were much lower on the list, so that was good. Also, then to the regional priority projects, there have been several projects that the Cape Cod Commission has been the lead on, and then other projects that other organizations are the lead on. So the projects that we've been the lead on are the coastal use templates, which we completed a phase 1 report for, the Regional Redevelopment Authority, which we have a draft report completed right now and will be presenting to the Business Roundtable on Friday. We have an economic cost center analysis that is underway but is not complete. We have the Smarter Cape Initiative, which is quite broad, and we'll talk about that a little bit more as we go on. And then a zero waste project that we have received a grant from DEP to complete. So the Smarter Cape Initiative is really made up of several different parts. A strategic information office, regional umbrella services system, and then we work every year on a Smarter Cape Summit. And we can talk about that more after I'm finished with the presentation. We did get a $40,000 grant from the EDC to help with sort of smarter water planning, smarter watershed planning, and Paul can talk about that in a little bit more detail. That's the tool. And then we did get the $90,000 grant from DEP for the Zero Waste Project grant. And then we did get $500,000 for the e-permitting grant from the state just recently, the Administration and Finance Department agency. And that will be part of the Regional Umbrella Services system. Do you want to take over with some of this stuff?
No, you can finish.
Okay. Also under the Smarter Cape umbrella is this smarter water planning tool, which about 4 or 5 members of our staff have been working intensively to build a tool that will help with wastewater planning efforts, enabling communities to look at how much different options might cost in different areas. And we have supported that effort, obviously, because wastewater is essential to economic development, to the future of economic development on Cape Cod. So that's why it's part of the SEDS and Smarter Cape. Regional priority projects that we support but aren't the lead on are things like Open Cape, entrepreneurship, buy local infrastructure development, fisheries trusts, renewable energy testing and training. And in many cases, we've supported efforts to find funding for those projects. In some cases, we've been successful, like Open Cape, and in other cases, we haven't been successful. The Fisheries Trust put a great grant into the EDA, but they just simply couldn't understand the concept, and so we weren't successful in that area. And we have put in some other grants, but have not been successful. Entrepreneurship is being supported by the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, so that's something that's moving forward. And then finally, RESET, our direct technical assistance to towns. We have had intensive engagements in both Yarmouth and Bourne, and this is largely around, well, we take an interdisciplinary team and we focus them on a particular issue. In Yarmouth, it was really Route 28, in Bourne, it was Buzzards Bay. What is needed to see redevelopment in those areas, and what are the obstacles in those areas? And then we work with them to overcome those obstacles. In Yarmouth, we focused on a couple of different projects. We focused on some public lands that they could do some temporary uses on to stimulate economic development in one particular area near Parker's River. Then we also worked with them on streetscape improvements and other more zoning-oriented things along Route 28 in different nodes, so different types of streetscape improvements for different areas. In Bourne, we've really worked with them largely on their wastewater issue. And then we've also worked with them to establish a growth incentive zone in downtown Buzzards Bay, which is being looked at right now by the commission. They've submitted their application. So the growth incentive zone actually has been very successful for Hyannis, and one of the things that we wanted to share with you was some of that success. We have a couple of examples of areas that were redeveloped despite the economic downturn, and the assessed value has increased significantly. The Stevens Street development, which is where the old Harry's was, the assessed value has increased by 425%. The 500 Main Street development in Hyannis, which was basically facade improvements in many ways and upgrading the interior, that increased the assessed value by 126%. So we're really seeing some success in these growth incentive zones, and we hope to see that in Bourne as well. And that is the presentation.
Thank you. Just to reiterate, basically there are three areas that, well, four areas. Economic development plays a role in the regulatory program, but it's primarily in the information distribution, Stats Cape Cod, in the RESET projects supporting local town projects, mainly revitalization, redevelopment projects, and the SEDS. So I think with that, it would be better to open up to questions.
Okay. Who would like to go first or last? They all seem to like your presentation. I'll ask you a quick question. Obviously, the biggest factor in all this is the economy. I mean, it goes up and down, and you guys are basically planning into a moving target. I mean, do you take that into consideration? I mean, even since the SEDS, I was on one of those focus groups, and things have had, the economy went down and went up again, and so, I mean, how do you factor that in when you, I mean, when you're working, let's say, with a town like Sandwich or somebody, and you're talking about commercial and industrial development or stuff like that? I mean, you don't know what's going to happen.
No, but our philosophy is really that government doesn't create jobs. Really what we can do is streamline a regulation, we can create incentives, and we build the structure and the infrastructure around, and then the free market steps in and sort of takes over. So it's not, economic development for me has never been using a crystal ball to try to guess what the next hot industry is going to be. That has failed everywhere that I've seen it, including here. So that's not really what we try to do. We really try to work on creating that scaffolding, and that is sort of unaffected by the economic ebbs and flows. But I will say this, there is an opportunity in a down economic time to do planning. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the Hyannis growth, the Hyannis gives, for example, that happened when things were hot. But that, we finally passed that and then the market tanked, I swear, the next day. And it just went, phew. But even in that, you've seen tremendous reinvestment in downtown Hyannis, and the assessed real estate values down there have really gone up, even as a total outline of the GIZ. Between 2005 and now, there's been a 10% increase in assessed values. And if you look at your own assessments, that has been hard to replicate anyplace else.
Yeah.
So, in these down economic times, that's when we need to do the planning.
Yeah, I just mentioned that because they're tearing up Route 137 in Harwich, and I'm stuck, every day behind some policeman with his hand up, and while I'm cursing him out, and I realize that you guys are looking at they're looking at a village center or something there, I'm saying, does that mean all these empty storefronts that are, are going to be filled? Because there seems to be a tremendous, and I know I'm taking just a snapshot in time, but what I'm looking at is a lot of development as far as changing the roads and looking at it and planning, and I'm saying, there's nobody, they've got commercial property up the wazoo, and they can't get rid of
Yeah.
it. So, it's not your fault, and I'm sure 20 years down the road, all of this will mean something, but.
Well, the Cape is sort of a case study for the ebbs and flows in economic development. It's that conflict with the seasonal economy, with the year-round economy. One of the biggest drags on year-round economic development on the Cape is the Cape Cod Canal. If you have a business that is in any way dependent on automobiles or trucks for logistics, you're not going to locate on the Cape because you're not going to compete with seasonal traffic over the bridges in the summer. And so we've had to deal with that. If you look at South Yarmouth, that was a motel economic model that worked once. When people in Massachusetts used to throw the kids in the station wagon, which they don't make anymore, and drive across the bridge and look for a vacancy sign, that economic model hasn't worked for 30 years. But it's frozen in time, in part by the zoning. So we have to go back and create incentives and change zoning to encourage the kind of development that we know will work. And again, that's, the government's role is really sort of an infrastructure and the scaffolding, not in betting on particular businesses or industries.
I got just one more comment, and so hopefully everybody is considering what to ask you after your great presentation. But capitalizing the Cape Cod Fisheries Trust is something I know a little bit about. I've known Paul Parker for years, and I know he's involved. He's got some private money behind this. Not everybody's a big fan of the hook fishermen, but I'm not going to go into that. But what the delegates should know, and what the county should know about that, is that what they're doing is they're buying up fishing rights and holding those rights and then apportioning them out to individuals. So you have a board of fishermen who are deciding how to apportion out fishing rights. And it is a good purpose for it, trying to keep those allotments here on the Cape and trying to keep that segment of the Cape's economy vibrant. But there's also a downside in the sense that you have a control over who can fish and who gets those rights, And I once knew a guy I worked with. I said, "What do you do?" He says, "Well, my father has 200 acres of tobacco in North Carolina." And I said, "Oh, you're a farmer?" And he goes, "No, I'm not a farmer." He says, "We have somebody else do that." He says, "We just have the right to farm," And so, I think as we look into that, I trust those guys and stuff, but as we look into it, it has to be carefully planned out to make sure that there's not a whole bunch of political blow up there. Anyway, so meanwhile, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'm always struck when I listen to things, and I'm particularly struck that after 9 years of being a selectman, how much I don't know that the Cape Cod Commission does. It depends on what we were doing up in Provincetown at the time. You know what I mean? Like some of the transportation stuff, I was really familiar with Clay Schofield, some of the, but there's other stuff that I'm not. And so my question is, and maybe you could break it up into percentages, it's a communication question. How do you share sort of what you do with my little town? Is it primarily through the town manager's office, or is it half and half town manager, my Cape Cod commissioner, or is it the building department? Because we're small enough that we don't have an economic development department, nor will we ever. We don't even have a planner, and yet we've got a pretty vibrant economy. But even as a selectman, we had economic development sewer permits, but I wasn't aware, you know what I mean? I'm learning a lot. So my question is, how do you communicate this information to my town, for example?
It varies town to town, certainly on the size and scope. But in Provincetown, it's primarily through the town manager and the assistant town manager that we see a lot. And we're fortunate enough to have a member of the Board of Selectmen who sits on the Cape Cod Commission now. So I think the communication there is pretty good. And we Most of the work that we've done in Provincetown lately has been transportation related. Obviously, for obvious reasons. When we look to do some of these redevelopment projects in other parts of the Cape, we often look at Provincetown. It developed historically. But to have that kind of density adjacent to that kind of natural resource protection is really a special thing. And it's very difficult to recreate. So we learn a lot from Provincetown every time we go down.
Okay, but I guess the answer then, the question is, it is primarily through the town manager's
Yeah.
office then?
Yeah, once a year, every Board of Selectmen, Town Council, we come by and say hello, and, they want to hear less and less from us, but we still show up.
Okay.
Is that new?
No, we've been doing that for a while, and when 4 years ago, when I was new, those sessions were longer, and they involved PowerPoints, and they say, don't bother to bring the PowerPoints, and check in for 10 or 15 minutes. If they have a question, we answer the question. It's a more efficient process. But we hear about things when they don't go well.
Okay. Spiro, and then Tom, and then John?
Sure. Mostly a comment. I want to thank you for putting a face on economic development, a description to economic development. I've been doing it on and off in various capacities for 30 years, and I've often been reduced to saying that economic development, you'll recognize it when you see it. But, these are the components of it as you're practicing it, and some of them are extremely valuable. I would like to get into the Regional Redevelopment Authority discussion at some
Sure.
point. I'm not sure this is the appropriate forum because you said you're pushing that out the door on Friday.
The Business Roundtable was the lead entity on that, so we've been working with them, and we're going to present to them on Friday. I think you'll like the structure, Spiro. It's not a redevelopment authority. It's more of a regional finance authority that could then channel funds through local EDICs for projects in specific areas.
I always thought what was missing at the municipal level was some form of redevelopment agency where you would ID or target specific properties for redevelopment and then step in as a municipality to start to make it happen.
Yeah.
But since the delegate from Provincetown picked it up, I'm going to run with it. I think you guys are hamstrung by the commissioners that are appointed to your board and the lack of communication back to town halls. And there's nothing you can do about it per se, but if we're going to be talking about reconstruction of county governance, that we should probably take a quick look at the Cape Cod Commission and see how those folks are appointed and what their responsibilities are vis-a-vis the towns and the county. Thanks.
And just in response to that, and one thing I forgot to mention is the regulatory program, which in the past has frightened people away. People were afraid to drive by the commission to get caught up in the vortex of regional regulation. But I'm proud to tell you now that many times when businesses look to relocate or expand on the Cape, now they come to us first. And even through the regulatory program with the use of development agreements, we've permitted an $80 million twin hotel renovation project in Yarmouth, 750,000 square feet in the industrial park in Barnstable. We're engaged in the major expansion of Mashpee Commons. And we have just done two companies, Hydroid and Bourne. And they're a great company. They wanted to expand. They came to us, tripped a threshold, and we got them through the commission in about 30 days. So, it's a different place now, and we encourage anybody with any sort of questions about building businesses or expanding businesses to come to us, and we can help them out.
Okay. John?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm fascinated by this, maybe I'm the only one in the room, Zero Waste Project. Could you let us know what that is? Zero Waste Project, that's my first question.
Yeah, I would just preface Leslie's comments by the fact that the SEDS process really was a grassroots process, so these are not necessarily all projects that I would have endorsed personally or the Cape Cod Commission with, but they came up through that process. And I think Ron's right that sometimes things shift around. But zero waste is an important issue.
So the Zero Waste Project at this point is focused on a new coordinator that we have just hired, use it through that DEP grant, and they're going to basically focus on education. working with towns to help them look at pay-as-you-throw models in particular, and then other ways of recycling and reusing waste, composting, yes. And so that coordinator will be on board, I believe, May 1st, and we'll be working with Mike, Mike's last name is, I can't remember, from the Extension Service. So Mike works on hazardous wastes, and that this will be focused on solid waste.
Just to round that out, the Smarter Cape Conference will be held on May 14th at Seacrest in Falmouth this year. And they're broken down into different subgroups, and I chair the environment group. And so we will be focusing on energy and wastewater. And zero waste sort of sits in the middle of that for a lot of important reasons. So we'll come out with a 12-month plan to sort of unify some of the energy plans and coordinate them and cross-reference them with any of the wastewater plans that are out there. But looking 2 or 3 years out, what we'd like to get to is more of a unified resource management plan. And so all of these things are get more efficient in the process, and that's how you can move forward to a zero waste stream reality. Nantucket's done a pretty good job, so there are people that have made a lot of progress in this, and we hope to catch up to them soon.
John, you want to follow up?
Just as a follow-up, I know that my town of Dennis is looking at the pay-as-you-throw, and I believe there's only one town on the Cape that does it right now. So will you be coordinating or helping them out with some sort of options that they might, because I know that if you have curbside, it's a very different model than it is if you have a central location. So are you going to be working with the towns? I know that Dennis is very interested.
Yeah, I mean, that's the purpose of the coordinator that we got from DEP, to do that sort of coordination. Sandwich has had a successful program. There have been other programs that have been tried earlier that weren't that successful. I mean, if you don't make people do it, and if it's just the voluntary programs haven't been as successful. And there's always that question as to whether curbside pickup is really less expensive or not. So we hope that this coordinator will be able to use some precedents to inform towns as they move forward and make those decisions.
Okay. Well, I hope you do, because I grew up in the city and I've always missed the sound of the garbage trucks in the morning when they collect the refuse. I mean, it's just something you don't forget after a while. So, Tom?
Yes, I'm impressed with the array of, things that you're working on, and it as you just pointed out, the growth incentive zone that the Cape Cod Commission helped on so much has been a boon to, Hyannis, and I think anyone who goes down can see the vibrance of that community, and we have several more projects, coming forward in the near future. I'm wondering about a couple of things on when you prepare your chart. Like how do you measure success on these? And then secondly, is there a way to quantify the actual employment numbers? How, what, if you put in an effort for something, did it add 10 people to the workforce, or did it, how, do you keep those kinds of numbers, or would one find those under Stats Cape Cod? Is it something you worry about or feel should be a part of the component of reporting or not?
Yeah, well, I worry about it a lot, but it's always difficult. I mean, prior to coming here, I spent 2 years working for a quasi-public corporation, Commonwealth Corporation. We did workforce development and economic development statewide. And when you get into the business of trying to measure jobs created from an initiative, it gets fuzzy, and sometimes those, when you use the multiplier effect, I'm not sure that those numbers are accurate or a way to do it. And from our perspective, I think it's really about the investment in infrastructure and trying to help towns implement their visions of economic development that we've been trying to focus on. But I am interested in being able to measure the results. So when we redo SEDS in 2 years, that will be part of it. Will be to include a performance matrix and timelines for delivery. One of the problems of SEDS this year is that we did have, 16 projects is a lot. And when you start to farm out leadership responsibilities to other agencies that you don't have a management structure over, it's kind of hard to make that happen. So I think we've learned some lessons, Tom. I think it's a good question. And performance matrices will definitely be part of the SEDS in the future.
Because part of that, too, is the cost of what you do and then what the payback is from that.
Could you repeat the Seacrest date and plan, and is anyone who's invited, could I show up? What's the deal?
14th and 15th.
Yeah, it's May 14th and 15th at the Seacrest in Falmouth, and there's a registration process
On smartercapesummit.com.
online at smartercapesummit.com.
In our page.
And you're all encouraged to attend.
Anything happening in your grid in Falmouth in particular that I might be interested in knowing about?
We have a couple of projects in Falmouth, regulatory projects that are coming through. And then,
Open Cape is certainly.
yeah, I mean, yeah, Open Cape's been big in Falmouth, but we're looking at sort of with the Falmouth EDIC a lot. I mean, they were sort of given some land, and that was sort of the business plan for EDICs, but they're out of land, so they have to sort of make their transition. And so what we've done is tried to encourage a partnership between Falmouth and Mashpee, who's at the beginning of that cycle, to see if there's some knowledge transfer there. But that's an area that we'll continue to work on. Falmouth has a fairly robust planning department, and they don't call on us as often as other communities might.
We did, in the Coastal Use Templates Project, which the phase one was some case studies, which included Woods Hole as one of the case studies. And we did do a DLTA project also, looking at East Falmouth.
We did look at East Falmouth, but there are two regulatory projects that are coming through that they're not officially in the door yet, so I won't name them. But one is a significant expansion of a tech company down there, and that's going to be a really good project for Falmouth.
And it'll go to the regulatory process because it's over 10,000.
Yeah, it's going to trip Cape Cod Commission thresholds, a lot like the Hydroid project did, but I don't foresee any sort of bumps in the road for them, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, Paul, you mentioned a couple of recent approvals you had through your office. Can you tell what the average time of approval is?
I don't have a specific number on average time of approval. I can tell you definitively it's been much improved in the last 4 years than it was prior to that. Generally, once an application is deemed complete, it doesn't take more than 90 days to get through.
The reason I ask is my companies are located off Cape, and people ask me that all the time. Well,
Yeah.
how long does it take? So I'd like to have a good answer for you.
Yeah, well, it's good. We're going to be in front of the Sandwich Board of Selectmen tomorrow night, and Sandwich has a really interesting opportunity. And I would encourage all the towns to take advantage of the tools that we have now to raise thresholds so that some of the projects that don't really need to come to us won't have to.
Just one not a quick question, but people say I have a quick question, it usually goes on for a long time. So, I mean, my town, like Chatham, and I imagine it's probably true in a place like Provincetown, the selectmen get most of their input on economics from the Chamber of Commerce. You know, they come in and they are, a group, 100 or so of small merchants. They have shops, they have, and so they're more concerned with next year's receipts. That's what they're concerned with, And when I was on the board, I always tried to say, what's our 5-year plan? What's our 10-year plan? And my predecessor here, Charlotte, tried to do the same thing, and I know that Paul and Therese have tried to do the same thing. And it seems like you're looking at that. But then on the other hand, you have these small entities, the small chambers of commerce that are looking basically at the little picture. Do you bring people on board? I mean, does the shop owner and the guy who owns a bed and breakfast, does he understand what's going on, how it affects them?
Well, I mean, it's a good question, but the regional chamber and the local chambers are membership organizations, so they tend to look out for their members. And especially in an economy that is so frantically seasonal, it's difficult for people to do a lot of that. What we try to do on the county level, on the regional level, is a little bit more of that long-term planning, a little bit, looking more at infrastructure. But we do try to help and coordinate those local entities, and I think part of the redevelopment authority concept on the SEDS project is part of that thinking is how can we help the local chambers and the local EDICs? How can they benefit? I mean, there are a limited number of resources out there to support the number of chambers of commerce that we have on the Cape. So they're part of that discussion structurally. And we do try to get out and get some feedback from them as often as possible, and we certainly encourage them to participate not only in the SEDS project, but in Smarter Cape summits.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that there's a gap between, obviously, what you're doing is important, looking at the infrastructure and looking at the basic economic, basis, and then they're looking at, like I said, next year's receipts, and I'm trying to, is there a gap there somewhere where they don't, where the two of you don't relate, or do you feel that you're pretty much on the same page?
In both Chatham and Provincetown, in many ways, you're looking at much more of a balanced economy than you are in some of the other towns. I mean, a lot of towns would like to be Chatham. And a lot of towns would like to be Provincetown. So and so it is somewhat of a relative statement, but they are balanced, and Chatham sort of is what it is now, and it's not like it's in transition and there's a gap and they need help becoming something else.
Okay. Are we well, just, Deborah, and then to somebody else?
Yeah, me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Deborah. I didn't understand something that you said about your website, Stats Cape Cod.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just so I understand, it's statscapecod.org or?
Yes,
Okay, and
Stats.
what exactly can you find there?
It lists in a user-friendly way a lot of the demographic information and economic information that's related to the Cape, and it is a useful resource for citizens and for local businesses and chambers of commerce. And to the extent that there's information people would like that's not there, we would take those requests in and continue to sort of update that site and make it as functional as possible.
And I just had one other thing. You said you felt there was a need to change zoning to encourage economic development. And I know at various times in the past, up in Truro, which is where we have gotten model language from the Cape Cod Commission and, about proposed zoning things, and looked at it and basically said, we can't possibly ever take this to town meeting.
Right.
It's at least 4 pages long, nobody's gonna read it. And after massive editing, we end up with, a half a paragraph, which probably we can pass. And, I think there's a kind of dichotomy between what's politically doable and what's perhaps desirable.
Yes, and I think the past practice of the commission has been towards these one-size-fits-all approaches to the towns, but there's a big difference between a town of 2,500 year-round residents and a town of 50,000. And I think sometimes things get lost in translation, so we are trying to make more of an effort to accommodate things, and things are different in Pamet County. But
No, I wasn't going there today.
Well, let's hear from the other end of the
Thank
Cape.
I have a question in regards to the canal area assessment and transportation improvement. I see that the plan has been completed, but the project was postponed by the funder. So where does it stand? Has the plan been brought forward to the Upper Cape or to any of the towns that it's going to impact?
yeah, what's been completed is a work plan, which we have presented to be funded so that we can actually go out and do the canal area study. And it was not, the feds were not, did not see it as a priority right now, and really, frankly, didn't want us talking about doing any sort of analysis of the future of the bridges.
So you're talking about the car bridges, but this year was
Yeah.
said that was focused on the rail.
Yeah.
So are you going to put up another railroad bridge?
No.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So you got like a rough draft of what you want to do, but you don't
We have a
any money
work
to complete
plan,
it?
but generally what we do is we have work plans, we put them in the transportation plan, and they're funded through a transportation grant. But the particular work plans need to be approved by the state and by the feds.
Okay, and I noticed under here in the lead agency and the project team, there's nothing here that says Bourne. And seeing how we're the town that's being impacted by all this study, you would think that somebody from the town of Bourne would have been included in the agency and the project team?
The team's made up of regional entities primarily. We work with the town of Bourne all the time, and especially on sort of the landing spots on both of the bridges. And in fact, Belmont Circle is one of our top priority transportation projects, and that's been sort of pointed out to us by the town of Bourne. So I think we have a fairly good relationship with the town, an improving relationship, certainly, that allows us to prioritize those transportation projects out there. The fact that it's not part of this regional group on the rail, I'm sure they're part of it somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, we would certainly work with the town of Bourne.
Yeah, okay. I
add
just
that-
thought it was kind of strange that, seeing how you're talking about bridges and traffic over the canal, that you
Yep.
have Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce is not in Bourne, so why
No.
are they part of it? That was my question, and I guess you can't answer it. Thank you.
All right, I'd just like to tell.
I did answer it.
Tell my colleague from Bourne that the executive director of the RTA is Tom Cahir. Tom Cahir is well-known in Bourne, and he is, I'm sure, going to look after Bourne's interests when he participates in that plan, so.
Right, but he's got to divide his hat between RTA and the town of Bourne.
Yes, and the complaints
makes it
about
a
the
lot
traffic over the
difficult.
bridge, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it, well, how long you fought for this?
Okay, are we all set on this? Well, thank you. This is as important as anything the commission does, I think, and hopefully it'll come to fruition, and I appreciate your giving us this update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Communications from public officials? Any communications from members of the public? We've already done that. The Assembly will now convene, and we'll begin with a report from a Standing Committee on Finance on recommendations on proposed ordinance 12-03 dated 3/7/12. John, where are you?
Thank you. This is a report on proposed ordinance 12-03. It was submitted to the Assembly of Delegates by the Board of Regional Commissioners on March 7th. We held a public hearing on March 21st. The purpose was to add to the county's operating budget for fiscal year 2012 by a supplemental appropriation for the fiscal year 2012. We discussed it. It was a $50,000 request for additional salaries because of weather and other conditions. The dredge was had an increased opportunity, increased demand to do more projects, and which would result in an increase of $50,000 in salaries to be fronted to them. But this will be offset in total by the return on investment by the charges that they're able to get from that to replenish the $50,000 back into the enterprise fund. We had a long discussion. At the end of it, we voted 4-0 to send it along to the Assembly for approval. And with that, I would ask formally that the Assembly approve proposed ordinance 12-03.
Okay, we have a motion on the table. Do I hear a second? Second. Is there any discussion on this? Okay, well, in that case, the clerk will call the vote.
Richard Anderson,
Yes.
Cheryl Andrews, Ron Bertstrom,
Yes.
Leo Kukunis, James Killian, Marcia King,
Yes.
Thomas Lynch, Teresa Martin,
Yes.
Deborah McCutcheon,
Yes.
Spiro Mitrakostas, John Omen,
Yes.
Paul Pilcher, Julia Taylor.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, proposed ordinance 12-03 passes with 78.11% of the delegates voting yes, 21.89% absent.
Who's absent?
No, that's not right. Hold on.
We're all here, except for Tony.
Hold on, I needed to hit the enter key, sorry. 92.72% voting yes, 7.28% absent.
Okay. The next is the minute report of the Public Service Committee and approval of the minutes. Dick, have you got a quorum here?
All you wanted was the minutes, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so Marcia and Sparrow, and Cheryl. So will somebody make a motion, and someone will second it, and then we'll vote.
Cheryl made the motion, I second.
Okay.
Okay,
all
the
in favor?
motion, the motion is to approve the minutes. We got to get that in the record,
Oh,
okay.
to approve the minutes, all right. All in favor? Got it.
Okay,
4-0.
done. Now, we come to our favorite part of the agenda, the report from the clerk.
As you can see, I distributed the fiscal year 2011 audits. Just a quick heads up, I'll be talking to the chairman of the Finance Committee because typically you meet with the auditors in May to review the audit. And there will be a public hearing in 2 weeks. That will be April 18th, preceding the Assembly meeting on fiscal year 2013 budget. And the Special Committee on CLC and CVEC will be meeting next Wednesday at 4 o'clock. The official notice for that will go out Friday and be posted, but I'm just giving you a little bit of advance notice, and that's it for today.
Okay, is there any other business for the committee? Tom? The Assembly.
Based on the discussion we had with the county commissioners, is it my understanding that we're going to hold off on discussing or acting on any of the recommendations that were put forward, or I had seen some discussion about that you might appoint a committee. Is that going to wait until they finish?
My feeling is that, and I've sent this out to people who have emailed me, is that the special commission was appointed by the commissioners to report to them. In other words, they report to the commissioners. The commissioners, as we grilled them today, have to make a decision as to how to proceed until they decide whether they're going to accept, reject, amend the report and what they intend to go forward on. I don't think it makes any sense for us to do it. We'd be hitting a moving target. So that's what we discussed today. They don't seem to be in any hurry. And I don't think we should waste valuable political time talking about something which could be totally different in a couple of months. That's my feeling. I mean, Julie, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I don't think we need to come up with our own
Yeah.
response to the special commission, because I think that doesn't matter in comparison to what the commissioners are going to be oriented to doing. But I do think that they sound reasonably sincere about wanting to involve us, and I think we should be involved and take full advantage of that opportunity when they start getting into it. So I don't think we would need to hold off and wait for them to say, here's what we want. I think they're a little reluctant to do that, in fact, in regard to the structure issue, and that we could become part of their discussion pretty early on before they made a final determination, and I think we ought to consider doing that.
I think somewhere in the second week of November, they may decide to take some hard and fast, positions on some of these things. Okay, Jim?
Just a comment. Early last year, we were discussing charter review here. Several members had brought it up. I know several other members had commented on the committee not working so well. Is that a discussion we should have? I mean, it is part of our responsibility to do exactly what the commissioners did, and perhaps this is a good starting point for our own review. Is that something the Assembly would be interested in starting to discuss?
Well, if you guys go back to the charter, you can amend, there are various processes for amending the charter, and one of them is simply for an ordinance passed by the Assembly, and could go directly to the legislature. So the process is there. We could discuss it. I mean, it's up to the members, but whether we want to go to a parallel and maybe even a competitive process with the commissioners is really the question that comes before us,
Well, we have to ask ourselves, if we had done this last year, would we have this other review in front of us or not?
Well, yeah,
But we
the
would have a-
answer is, we did do it, but they didn't like what we told them. That's the answer. You know. I was on the Charter Commission, and basically we said, we're not going to change the basic structure of county government. That's what we said. Leo was on it too. But there were apparently some people who disagreed with that, and they decided to do it over, you know,
But when was the last charter review done through the Assembly?
a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was more than a year ago, because we were
We're
discussing it.
required to do it every 5 years, but we can do it whenever we want. That's,
But the one that was done, from what I understand from the discussion, really wasn't completed. Nothing constructive was ever gained from it. Well, that's what the sentiment I was getting, how people, the only thing they were discussing is what they were going to call it. That was what came about from the discussion.
well, that's kind of a big subject to go into.
I agree, and I didn't want to do it, but it just
We can discuss that at the next meeting. We'll actually put it on the agenda and stuff if you want. Leo, did you want to say this?
Yeah, on a completely other matter. I just want to report to my colleagues that I took it upon myself as the delegate of the town of Harwich to take the printed copy of the recommendations of the special committee to the town selectmen and have them make copies of it. I presented to them 2 weeks ago, and then they put me on the agenda subsequently for last Monday night. And all I did at the podium was go by kind of a short version of each recommendation which came forward from the special committee, asking the selectmen to be aware of what's going on, have the actual copy available for the public in the town. It is available online. And a lot of concerning questions were asked, of which I did not have the answers to. One, specifically, I got an answer today, which was good. But I suggest that the rest of my colleagues do the same thing. Take the time to do what we're supposed to do. Report what's going on here at the county to your boards of selectmen. Don't have to necessarily give them an opinion, your opinion or our opinion. I didn't. I tried not to. In fact, I made the statement that I was there only to give the report and bring them up to speed of what's being looked at. If they ask my opinion, I'll give it to them, and they did on a couple of things. But I just think it's important for us to do that, to let our boards of selectmen and our constituents that voted us here to know what's going on.
Cheryl?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You're a good doobie, Leo. I did the same thing. And in furtherance of that communication between the Assembly and the Selectmen, I had asked if we could get a single file electronically of the notebook that we were given. And it took some time, but it's there. So in other words, so you don't have to tell people to go download every set of minutes, because I didn't want to do that. Right. It seemed like if we were handed a notebook, it ought to be available as one document, and it is now. So Jan has that if you need it. And I also met with the Board of Selectmen. I think they knew my opinion before I arrived. I don't know how that happened. But I do have a question. I think you started to answer it. I'm not clear what the process is for asking for an agenda item. But the topic that was raised by the delegate from Truro is one that she and I have discussed, and it has to do with the open meeting law and good communication and transparency with the county commissioners.
Well,
And I was kind of so taken aback by what I saw that I just wanted to email the entire assembly, which, as long as you don't respond, is legal. But on the off chance that a quorum of you would, I thought maybe it would be better to have it as an agenda item so that.
Yeah. Well, in following up on what you're saying and what Julie also said, is that these two topics, governance and wastewater, are enormous topics. And my feeling is that, myself and the clerk are looking at the budget, and we're thinking budget. This is budget time, and we're almost through there. We had the recommendation. So it's not that we can't do two things at once, but I really, today was economic development. I really wanted Paul to focus on that and not morph into the wastewater. So yes, we can certainly discuss this.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not asking to discuss wastewater.
I know, but what I'm saying is I know you're talking about but it has remotely concerned with the governance with how they're dealing with the wastewater process. Well, what was Paul talking about that you objected to?
I didn't object to. What are you talking about?
You said she complained about the open meeting law.
Yes?
Okay, because he discussed wastewater and it wasn't on the agenda.
Well, I don't care what topic it was. I think
Okay.
the open meeting law applies to any topic
It
that
does.
you're discussing.
What I say is I'll definitely put it on the agenda, and we'll find a space for it. We can give it the concentration that it's due. Tom, did you have something? Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. I think if the delegate has a concern about an open meeting law violation, there's a form to fill out, and I believe would go to our county clerk, and then there'd be it would set in motion a timeline to get responses to that. So I think, I'm not sure that that's the right thing to have a public discussion about. I think if someone has a concern, now if you just want to talk about transparency in general, that might be a good topic to have on. But I think if there were a violation, and you're aware of it, I would take that action and begin a process.
I agree with you, and I think from time to time, we can have a refresher course on this, because it's gotten enormously complicated. It's difficult for me, I know it's difficult for the clerk. Topics come up during the discussions with the commissioners. At one point, they weren't going to come there. They were only going to send one, because they thought if it was two, it would be a violation of the open meeting law. So, and also, I have to say that the ground shifts under our feet while we're discussing these things. Up in Boston, they're changing, they're issuing opinions and so on. So we can, Tom's right, we probably can't discuss a specific violation, but we can discuss an overall process and policy. I mean, so everybody's clear, Anyway, I know it's not satisfactory, but that's the best I can do. Anybody else?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Email.